I'm Jan Spencer, and we are on my property, my quarter-acre suburban property here in Eugene, Oregon. What's unique about this particular property is that it is an excellent example of what could be done with a not-so-special suburban property. For the past 16 years, I've been making transformation on this property with ideals of permaculture, with ideals of taking care of more of my basic needs here on site, like water, like energy, like food, creative needs, even social needs. So the place looks really different. Early on, the grass took out all the grass. Where we're sitting right here used to be my driveway. The place has passive solar retrofits to it. The house is a mid-1950s suburban house, kind of a small house, and well built as well. It's a well built little house, and the lot, the actual quarter-acre lot, the way its orientation is with the sun, with north and south, was a good choice. This is what I was looking for when I bought this house. Was a place that didn't have too much shade, that was modest in terms of size and cost, something that I could afford. And so after 16 years, it's just great to be here because there's food growing everywhere. I've got garden, vegetables, edible landscaping, various types of energy-saving retrofits. So anybody who was walking by on the street would say, oh, what's going on? This guy doesn't even have a parking lot. He doesn't have a driveway. What's going on with this house? So it's pretty obviously different and intended to be something different, to kind of repair a suburban property. So this is my place here in River Road neighborhood, here northwest of downtown Eugene. And this, what we're standing in front of right now, is the entry to my property, my quarter-acre property. So let's take a little closer look here. This sidewalk right here is what remains of my driveway. When I moved in, there was a driveway. Could park 5 or 6 cars in the driveway. I didn't need all that space. So early on, that's what I did is I took out my driveway. I rented a cement saw and a friend and I cut it up, and this is what's left of it. So a little bit more this way. This direction was a grassy front yard. There was a nice sized cherry tree, which I just had to make the call and I cut it down, and that made space for all this garden right here. And these are all veggies, broccoli, pole beans, tomatoes. So this was just a grassy front yard, and I did cut down a sizable tree that allowed me to have a big garden like that. And kind of looking up above us right here, this is a prominent feature of what I have a lot of on my property, and that is elevated landscaping. Where we're walking right here, I can't have anything growing here. There's a concrete sidewalk. This is the entry into my shed over here. So I can't have anything growing on the ground, but I can plant a grapevine right over here, and that grapevine goes wherever I want it to. So it goes up 7-8 feet, even above the roof of the shed. I've got trellis up above that shed and up above the sidewalk. So I have food growing in a place that I can't do it on the ground, but going 7 or 8 feet up, I don't spend much time up there. So some plants lend themselves to that kind of a landscaping approach. plants that grow long. You can even shape some types of trees to start off in one place but go up to where the sun is and leave the surface, you know, for other purposes. So over here actually is a little bit of a water feature, and this right here is my driveway. That's part of what's left of my driveway, and that's all kind of moss that's all dried out in the summertime. In the winter that becomes, it's all nice and lush. And interestingly, I have a water tank back over there, and I have a pipe from the water tank that comes up here, and I can turn the water on when I like. I can have a little waterfall right here, which is kind of a nice sort of little aesthetic feature. But I don't use it so much in the summer because I have to keep my water for use in irrigation during the summertime. So let's maybe go back this way.
And are those are beans over there growing next to the pond? Are those beans there? Or?
Oh yeah. Those are pole beans. Those are pole beans. I have other pole beans over there too. And then I have boysenberries along the street there. And don't jump, Mike! You can edit that out. We're good neighbors. I wish that wasn't happening, but you know, we're good neighbors. So yeah, edible landscaping. I've always kind of enjoyed kind of tropicals. I planted the palm tree. I have some banana trees. They don't make any bananas, but they just kind of look nice. I moved in here in 2000, in the spring of the year 2000. So that's been 16 years now. And I pretty much came into doing this, hit the ground running. I knew what I wanted to do. And I had a permaculture design course when I lived in Texas about 1990, and this was the first place I could actually apply that. But of course, a lot of it's just common sense too. You know, I have my backyards on the south side of the house. That was important, but it's been 16 years since I've started working on this, and it's great to see the trees grow. I planted trees that were the size of a pencil that I can climb in now, and to be able to benefit by what these trees do, and the place is visually attractive as well it is to me. So it has to be one of the best things I've ever done in my life. You know, it's just so enjoyable, looks nice, helps take care of more of my needs. It's actually something I call home economics. I can take care of some of my important needs even without money because I'm taking care of some of these needs right here on site. So this little area right here is another place where I have a lot of elevated landscaping here. This is a good story. Along here there used to be a big laurel hedge right on the property line with my next door neighbor Bill. We agreed we wanted to take the laurel hedge out. We took out the laurel hedge, and I have all this edible landscaping on my side of the property line, and Bill has edible landscaping on his side of the property line. So we traded out the laurel hedge for a much more useful way to approach this space right here. It's a good example of you can do a lot of good things, a lot of smart things on your own property, but when you start collaborating with other people, it can present lots of other sorts of opportunities, not just with a next door neighbor, but people who live nearby as well. So it's great to have a permaculture property, but in my opinion, that's only the point of departure, you know, for more interesting opportunities as we increase the scale of doing this. If more and more people were doing this, we could seed saving networks, even creating methane gas to use for cooking, safety and security. There's lots of benefits by making common cause and making smart plans with other people too. So let's kind of continue back this way. This is my bicycle right here. I want to call attention to a bicycle. I happen to like this style of a bicycle, but bicycles are great. This is an essential part of my lifestyle right here. I drive rarely, and when we're talking about reducing our eco footprint, a more earth-friendly lifestyle, it's not just how much food we grow on our property. It's what we eat, it's how we transport ourselves, what do we do with vacation, how do we spend our time. I love a bicycle. This is entertaining transportation. So I love bicycles, and that's a great bicycle right there. When I first moved in here, I didn't know anybody who was actually doing this kind of like extreme permaculture makeover. There should be a reality TV show, Extreme Permaculture Makeover. But I didn't know anybody in town who was actually doing something like this. There are plenty of people who are into permaculture, but to my knowledge, I didn't know anybody who did a wholesale, pretty much top to bottom, complete makeover of the property. And since then, there are a lot more people doing this around town, other parts of the country too. It's just, given the state of the world and the trends, economic, political, social, environmental trends, it just makes sense. So many people live in suburbia independently. People all over the country have said to themselves, I can do a lot with this property. I know people all over the country who are doing this. So other people doing this, I actually knew somebody when I lived in Houston in 1990 who was transforming his suburban property, and that was in 1990. But in the past 16 years, there are more people here in River Road doing this. There are more people doing this all around Eugene, and we have some networks here in the neighborhood. You know, people. My next door neighbor's doing some of this. My next door neighbor on the other side, a little bit of edible landscaping, and they have a garden and they have chickens. But even within a 5-minute bike ride, there are a dozen properties where people are pretty serious about it, and anybody who visited that property would say, this isn't a normal, average suburban property. But we'd like to see more and more people doing this. But there's a big difference now compared to 16 years ago, not only here in River Road and in my neighborhood, but all over town. So here we are in the backyard, and the backyard was all grassy as well. It was a grassy backyard. There were several trees that I cut down early on that just wasn't the place to have a big apple tree in the southeast corner of my property. So I made some modifications for sure. I did sheet mulching, was how I got rid of the grass, by putting cardboard on the grass and then dumping a lot of organic material, leaves, compost. I did a lot of that early on to suffocate the grass. So I don't have any grass, but that doesn't mean that after a while you're going to get weeds showing up. There's plenty of weeds. So you keep up with things. One of the interesting, we'll just do this. One of the interesting assets the house had when I moved in already was that it had a sunroom. Somebody had closed in the south-facing patio. The patio's on the south side of the house. We can go in. The patio's on the south side of the house. And somebody closed it in years before I bought the house. So about 8 years ago, a friend of mine and I we rebuilt this. We remodeled, redesigned, rebuilt the sunroom because it just needed to be rebuilt. So we put glass up in the ceiling also. And my experience with a sunroom is that every house ought to have a sunroom. I'm just amazed that this isn't a normal part of home construction. This space, passive solar, is a very important heat source all through the colder time of the year. I would never say that my sunroom makes my house feel tropical in January. Of course it doesn't do that, but it's helpful. And further into February, March, I have a fan that I circulate warm air from the sunroom into the rest of the house. So it is a big help in heating my house. Plus, just aesthetically, it's a really nice place to just spend time. It's a little warm in the summertime. I put shade cloth up over the glass in the ceiling. It doesn't even really get all that hot in here, even in the summertime. But I can't say enough about how nice it is to have a passive solar space. It's just a fun, enjoyable, spend a lot of time out here just reading on the couch. So I couldn't be more glad than to have a sunroom.
Great.
I recommend. Yeah, I recommend.
That's a beautiful space.
Yeah, it's just an awesome space. Well, there were several ideals when I moved here, when I started doing this transformation work on my property. I mentioned the idea of home economics, of taking care of more needs on site closer to home. So that could be energy with solar energy. I catch rainwater. I also grow a good deal of food here as well. The edible landscaping is one of the most, I'd say, really kind of a striking feature of this place, because of course this time of the year is the middle of summer, and just so much is coming on. There's just so much food growing here, and that is an important part of my own personal economy, because I make the time to look after that food. I like being in the garden. I like looking after plants. It's kind of performance art, and it's aesthetically, it's good exercise. I like gardening. So, but that's also the practical part of that, is that for the fruit, the vegetables, the nuts, I rarely buy any kind of fruit or vegetable any time of the year, because I store food in different ways. I freeze, I dry, I do a little canning with a friend. Some things, of course, like winter squash, they just store, keep it cool and dry, and it keeps for a year. But in terms of what amount of food do I actually produce here on site, for me, I rarely buy fruit or vegetables. That means like maybe only a few times a year. I don't grow bananas here. I'll have to admit, if the avocados are on sale, I'll buy some avocados. But there's just so much that can grow here in Eugene. It's just an awesome climate, and the soft fruit like peaches, apples, pears, mulberries. I even have a lemon tree. Right behind me is a 7-foot high lemon tree. I grow lots of lemons. There's tons of lemons on there. There's little small lemons on there right now. Vegetables, almost anything can grow here. Tomatoes, squash, beans. I love all that stuff. And so that's a really important part of my home economics, because economics means something, taking care of your needs. Somehow it doesn't necessarily mean money. Money is an important part of economics, but looking into the future, when we may need to downsize, a lot of needs can be taken care of in a non-money kind of a way. So I'm actually consciously trying to model a little bit of what a slightly, actually substantially different kind of a culture and economy might look like. In a sense, I see this as being a sort of an early preview of what a future might look like if we want our civilization to survive into the future. And people are going to be taking care of more needs closer to home, and people are going to be living a bit lower on the food chain. I'm totally vegetarian, so that makes taking care of my food needs a lot easier because I'm vegetarian. There's no way I'm ever going to make my own peanut butter here. I'm not going to do my own tofu and tempeh. This isn't any remotely idea of being self-sufficient. It's never going to be that. But it is taking care of a substantial amount of food here on site. No transport costs. My environmental footprint is just way smaller. But the food issue is part of a larger kind of a context of downsizing and localizing. But food is a huge part of it. It's so much fun to do this. So here is the way I go out into the back part of my property right here. And we can just stop right here and I'll point out a few of the main items. So you can see the front of the sunroom. We were just in the sunroom. You can see a good bit of the sunroom, that long glass wall. Back behind the lemon tree, that's a lemon tree in the foreground. Off to the right of the sunroom, that's a solar food dryer right there. I'm drying peaches and tomatoes right now. So that's another kind of food storage. I had a good year for peaches, just beginning for tomatoes. So, and back behind the dryer, there's a couple fig trees. All along the perimeter, all along the property lines, I have fruit growing. That's mostly fruit trees. I kind of have a hedge. I keep that pruned. They're all semi-dwarf fruit trees, so they don't get so big, but I do need to prune those every year because they will get too large. But I have apple off on this side there. I even have a small olive tree. You can grow olives here, and peach trees back here. And then you can see up over that roof, you can see once again I have a trellis up over that roof, and I have grapes growing up on that trellis right there. And of course, this large plastic structure is a greenhouse, and that allows me to get a little bit of a jump on the growing season. Of course, it gets warmer in there earlier in the spring, and it stays warmer a little bit further into the fall, so expanding the growing season is an important kind of a task. And then sort of here in the foreground, just various kinds of vegetables growing. My primary garden is out front, but I've got a lot. I got cabbage and cauliflower growing back here. So it's nice to look. It's nice to look out the window. This structure that I have here is a building that I built about 8 years ago, and a kind of an auxiliary building right here. It's essentially it's a detached bedroom. Helps increase the residential density of living here. It was kind of a somewhat impacted space to begin with, so this is a great place, office, workspace, so I enjoy that a lot. So let's go back here and we'll take a look at this water tank. So back here, This is an outdoor workspace, and where we're standing actually is some of my driveway. These are actually the chunks, these ones here, of my driveway cut up and relocated, so it got a little bit of a hard surface here. And this is all compost that you're looking at right there, various kinds of composting. And then back up above this workspace, this is a great workspace right here. I do a lot of pull out the table saw, the chop saw. This is just kind of a workspace, or even process vegetables, you know, and fruit for drying. But off here to my left, you'll see a big tank. That's a 3,000 gallon water tank, and that water comes off the roof of my auxiliary living space right here. That's a 3,000 gallon tank. It's 8 feet high and 8 feet in diameter, and that comes out to about 3,000 gallons. And I use that for irrigation. And I'm oftentimes asked, do I need to use city water for my garden after I use up my stored water, my stored rainwater? And the answer is generally not. I can be pretty much independent for gardening and watering my garden with the rainwater storage that I have. I have a total capacity of about 6,500 gallons, and that pretty much does it. But that means being careful with how you water too. I don't flood. I don't have a sprinkler. It's watering by hand. But this is an action I kind of like calling pre-adapting. That means I'm behaving in a way that makes sense, even though at the current time I don't have to do that. I could buy all the water from the city that I want. But I think that it's sensible partly to pre-adapt, just because it's just a more of a rational way to live, to not use things just because they're available. Use things when they're needed, but to use a lot of something just because a lot of it's there is not a very ethical thing to do. And we have, of course, an economic system and a civilization based on using stuff just because it's there, not because we need to use it to survive, but we use stuff as a way to feed the economy and a level of convenience and affluence that, in my opinion, is more than what we really need. And that's a different topic. But so the ideal here is to reduce the ecological footprint, and the water tank is good with that. The chickens I have back there, I do eat chicken eggs. They're kind of fun. That's where a lot of my compost goes. Chickens are just a great kind of a companion to follow you around and appreciate a little bit of attention. I know they're kinds of what they like. They like tofu. They like nuts. They'll eat all kinds of stuff I won't. If I have something up, I'll let the chickens decide if they're going to eat that or not. So chickens are good fun. They're good companions. What would my advice be to somebody who's interested in doing this and maybe a little cautious, maybe a little bit uncertain? There are plenty of people who have done this already. This is not terra incognita. You can go on YouTube and search something permaculture or suburban permaculture. There are books about doing this. People have written books about small-scale permaculture. You know, we're not talking about 10 acres, 5 acres, even 1 acre. There's all kinds of books about container gardening. You don't even have to have a 1/4 acre to be doing something significant for your own well-being, you know, for the good of planet Earth as well. It's an adventure, and one can certainly do research and gain more information to help make a plan that has a good potential for success. But part of the fun, it is creative. There's no way that somebody's going to have all this figured out from the very beginning. That said, it's good to have a good plan too, because the less you need to undo something, the better. But I did not have a detailed plan of what I was going to do here. I had a very good idea. Some things just design themselves. The sunroom is on the south side of the house. The rainwater catchment system is close to where the rain comes down the downspout off the roof. That's where I have my tanks. That's just a house to a large degree can actually help design itself. And here in Eugene, and I know in some parts of the country, there are people who have a knowledge of designing these kinds of systems. And I can see going into the future more and more people who actually might be looked upon as being a permaculture general contractor. Somebody who knows who does the rainwater catchment and knows who takes out the concrete and knows how to design edible landscapings. I know people in Eugene who do all of that right now, and the more people who are attracted to doing this really sensible kind of action. Not everybody knows all the ins and outs, and there are people who can help with somebody, kind of do a little hand holding, but a person can do a lot of self-education as well. And to provide a little bit of motivation is just to look at the condition of the world. Take a look at the condition of our political system, of the environment, of the economic system, our culture. That ought to be plenty of motivation, you know, to not to drop out from all of that, but more consciously choose from that larger mainstream culture what's healthy, because there are healthy things from that. But maybe saying, I'll take this, but I'm not going to take the whole package deal. And growing food at home, taking care of more needs at home, the solar energy, the rainwater, it's just such a sensible thing to do. So it is, I wouldn't wait, you know, until I had every detail figured out. But there's lots of ways to self-educate, or join a permaculture guild, or take a permaculture design course, become involved with a permaculture meetup group. There's lots of opportunities to find out more and enter into doing this with a little bit more confidence, and it's just so much fun. Well, let's just take a little stroll over this way. We're going to walk along the south wall of the sunroom, all this glass. So in front of the wall, though, this is a south-facing wall, so in front of the wall is a little bit of a microclimate. It gets a little bit hotter here. So this is where I plant. I've got a few little watermelons growing right here, right along this warm space. There have been times I've had a plastic covering over this, like a cold frame in the wintertime too. It's a good place to get stuff started early in the spring, late in the winter, but for things like lettuce, it's good early in the year, but the summer it's too hot to grow a lot of things.
There's some seeds here that you can save from the lettuce that's bolted. They're so tiny, those seeds.
Yeah, I kind of let the lettuce kind of go to seed right here. So there'll be lots of little lettuce plants by and by. So, yeah, there are a lot of different ways to enter into doing this. People have different personalities. People have different tendencies in how they go about a task. Some people like to work with other people, and some people like to work more by themselves. The choice is whoever's doing this. One of the things that I wish I had done more of on this project here, because I've done an enormous amount, I wish I had actually done more work parties. because work parties, when people come over and help, it's a fun action, you know, it's a fun social, it's also an educational opportunity as well. People learn how to do stuff. And then I wish I had done a little bit more of that when I think back, because I've done most of the work on this. Because I tend to be more of I like to do it myself kind of a person. I wish I had been more social about it. But a family would have an awesomely good time. Mom, dad, the kids, or whoever's in the family. This could be an enormously enriching experience for a family. I know people who have friends and neighbors who are doing this. It can be a great collaborative. You come over and help me on my place, I'll come over and help you on your place. So there's just any imaginable combination of doing part of it by oneself, having friends come over and help out. It can be a social experience. It can be a personal, almost solitary experience, and it can be combinations of all of that. So here we have a solar fruit and vegetable dryer. I built this actually. There's a fellow in Eugene who made this design. Eben Fodor is his name actually. Great solar dryer. This is really a fun way to process fruit and vegetables. So I have some peaches and I have some tomatoes in there. A good batch, you know, of drying fruit and vegetables. So I had, this is earlier in the season, had fava beans and peas out here. I'm actually going to get more into cover cropping. This looks pretty ragged right now, part of the garden, but I'm planning on doing a good deal of cover cropping, vetch and crimson clover. So that's an intention that I have. And then kind of looking back over in the other direction, we get a nice kind of a panorama of the backyard, and can see our reflection in the window there. And that's the space that I built back there, my own personal space back there. So that's where I spend a good deal of my time. But again, increasing residential density, there are several people who live here with me. So I want to make good use of this property. It's a 1/4 acre. And as I mentioned earlier, there's an enormous amount of potential in suburbia. Suburbia's got a lot of potential. Part of that potential is what you can do with the buildings, what you can do with the land, but just as important is the social potential of suburbia. We have some networks here in Eugene, some networks here in my neighborhood. People doing various types of collaborations with each other. We're even now kind of having ideas about buying a cider press together, getting a good cider press together, because I've got apples on the ground over here. That's kind of expands the home economics into neighborhood economics. The whole idea of not just taking care of things on your own property, but increasing the scale. You increase the skill, you increase the opportunities by doing collaboration projects with friends and neighbors nearby also. So that's a lot of fun. That's just a common sense safety and security. There's a realm more people are concerned about in terms of preparedness. What happens if we have an earthquake? We're kind of due for a big earthquake. What happens if the store doesn't open? There's lots of different scenarios, and to have food growing, to have water, to be producing energy on site, to have kinds of relationships with people nearby makes us more secure, makes us safer, creates community and a feeling of identity and being a part of something a little bit larger. And this has to be, I consider doing this property conversion project to be just one of the most fun, creative, enjoyable, rewarding kinds of actions that I've done in my life. I can't even begin to explain how enjoyable it is to look out the window. It could be raining, could even be snowing, could be a warm day, but to interact with the property, interact with the weather, the seasons, to see this change over a period of years, and to see it change even from week to week, kind of connects you back to the natural. The seasons change, and one's life changes too. I've been here 16 years, and it's been a great experience. I would recommend doing this to anybody, to start off with a small garden or jump in fully, but given, in my thinking, the condition of trends, global trends, and just the world today, it makes so much sense from so many different perspectives to do solar or home economics and make better use of a suburban property. I can't explain fully just how enjoyable this has been. It's really been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to whatever's next with doing this too.
I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open.